What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our weekly live stream, the main slate stream. Oh boy, we're all over the place early. For this week's Charles Schwab Challenge, gonna break down PGA DFS. Also over there on the prop side, everything you need to know to go out there and crush it this week. So if you've got any questions, feel free to go ahead, fire them down in chat. We got you covered on that end. And of course, we'll go through some chalk, weather synopsis. Make sure we're all on the same page on that end. And by the end, I think you'll be an expert of everything you need to know. So what's going on? We got a few down there in chat. What's going on? Brigadier there. Luke's drunk. Have had a couple shots, actually. So not drunk, but definitely a little bit buzzed, I would say. Have cracked open a few beers. Lineups were made a few hours ago. Prop slips all are in. So, hey, we're enjoying it. And we do have a little Crown and Coke action going on here. So don't think, obviously, you're kidding. Not drunk, but hey, maybe by the end we'll be halfway there. Who knows? What's going on, James? What's going on? Let's hop right on into it, right? Let's bring up the weather and get this thing started. So it's a very light Crown and Coke, I have to say. It's like one shot and like an entire Coke in it. So it's not very strong. If you see me slugging it, that's why. In terms of this golf course, you know, it's usually one of the more difficult in the world, but it's going to play a lot different this year. So, you know, I don't think we need to focus on these metrics that much other than to make sure that we're all on the same page. It plays slightly over par. Last year, it's close to 3/4 of a stroke over par. Some years, it's closer to just half a stroke over. Sometimes it's an entire stroke over par average. So there's a little bit of a range there to be had. But last year was pretty typical, I would say. Your green regulation and driving averages were slightly lower than what you're used to seeing, right? So 3% for the driving accuracy, about 5% for your greens regulation. The reason I said might not be that important this year is because of the weather, right? So you take a look at Thursday and Friday, it looks next to ideal. I mean, this is the HRRR model down here, which is the most accurate that I've found here on Windy. They're calling for low winds on Thursday, right? A max of right around 8 or 9 knots of wind gusts. That's not even sustained winds, right? The sustained winds are pretty much non-existent on Thursday. But then on Friday, it's a little bit more significant, right? By the afternoon, it's closer to like 9-10 knots when it comes to some of those wind gusts. But still, for a Texas golf course for this time of the year, we're used to seeing 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts, right? And in terms of knots, that'd be like 14 to 18 knots. We're used to seeing that for most weeks. And you can see down there, it's looking like it's going to be a little bit more calm this time around. It's also worth noting that overnight, they're expecting some rain over the golf course. Today, they got a few showers this morning and then overnight. And then on Tuesday, they got a ton of rain in the area. There were thunderstorms for much of the morning, 2 of the afternoon over there in Fort Worth. So you're looking at a golf course that should be a little bit more receptive this time around. And then you have these low winds. So I expect these players to get after it. Last year, your winning score after the first 2 rounds was 9 under par. You had Scotty up there. I think like there were 2-3 guys tied at 9 under par. And other than Scotty, it wasn't really a lot of big name players. You had some guys at -8, -7. I think you might see guys after 2 rounds at -12, -13 at this sort of event. So this over par scoring average, I think, is going to look a lot better this time around. And if you're looking at the driving accuracy and the green regulation averages, I'd expect them to be a little bit higher as well, because you obviously have receptive greens, less wind. It's just going to lower the difficulty there. If we're looking at Wind Finder, I will say that they're calling for a little bit higher winds tomorrow and then on Friday. Over here on Thursday, you can see closer to like 16 miles an hour when it comes to the wind gusts. On Friday, the same kind of thing. But if anything, guys, Wind Finder has probably been the least accurate site that we've had when it comes to some of these weather forecasts. So I don't know how much we want to look at that. If you look at Willy Weather, they're calling for relatively low sustained winds in the area over the first 2 days. Look at AccuWeather, weather.com, that sort of thing. It's pretty much right in line with what we're seeing over here on the windy.com model. So that's what I'm sticking with. If you're looking for an edge between the 2 waves, I don't see it at this point. If anything, I'm slightly favoring the AM/PM wave just because we know for a fact that tomorrow, with receptive conditions, with next to no wind in the morning, that they're going to have perfect scoring conditions. Right? They can go out there and take this place low. On Friday, they're calling for slightly higher winds, right? So maybe the conditions on Friday morning aren't as good as what you see tomorrow morning, but you can see in the afternoon, those sustained winds are slightly higher. So I think any edge that you'd get from playing the guys tomorrow morning would probably be wiped out by that Friday afternoon, slightly higher wind. So I don't see an edge to be played. I'm playing guys from both waves. Even in my set of 150, I'm not stacking one direction or the other. Even in just subsets of my lineups, right? I'm not taking 10, 15% and allocating them to AM only, or same thing for the PM, right? I'm not going out there and doing so just because I don't see that edge out there. I guess if there was a part of the world, an event to maybe take a shot on a wind edge, it might be in Texas, like what you get here with this golf course. But I've looked at every model. I've been paying attention to this weather this entire week, and I haven't seen that much to work off of as of right now. So we'll transition into the DFS side now, start talking about a few players, and start getting to your questions down in chat. So what's going on down there? Hell yeah, we we got started a little bit early. Colonial with the loser Cowboy fans there. Not great for a Philly guy. I can imagine. You'd probably get chirped if you wore anything Philly out there. But that's a good old rivalry for you, right? Just like I couldn't wear anything Pittsburgh related in Cincy, in Cleveland, over there in Baltimore, and probably get eaten alive. So, hey, that's what a good rivalry is all about, right? Let's get after it. What's going on, Bruce Leroy? We're late to the party on Underdog and Prize Picks. Have been bumped? No, there's definitely still stuff up there because there was stuff bumped up on Prize Picks. So you got to check that out again. I know Ricky's at 69.5. You have guys like Fleetwood still at 69, a bunch of guys for birdies at 3.5. There's definitely still a bunch of props there. So we'll go through some of them later on. I actually just made a whole video on them here on the channel. It's an 18-minute long video. So disagree, man. There's still a lot up there. Steven says, got in an early book a deal. Oh, sweet. For the $1. Yeah. Appreciate that, by the way. Looking forward to the read. Yeah, that'll actually be coming out in a week. So if anybody hasn't gotten that yet, make sure to check out my Twitter, check out the Patreon. There's links on there for it. If you're a part of my community, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's over here on Patreon or just on YouTube, that is going to be available to you. So yeah, I'm super stoked for it. We're a week away at this point, Steven. And I know I mentioned it last time around, but we are officially on the Amazon bestseller list. So that was a pretty good little side gig there as well. Can't complain about that. Appreciate all of you out there. Mark says, watched your fades. Would you fade Cameron Davis into single entry? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him this week. It's not even just the ownership there, Mark. I don't think it's a great course for his game, right? It's a short track. It doesn't really reward off the tee play. So yeah, I'm not huge on him there. Who's the better captain for Rainmakers? Hovland, Homa, Fleetwood, or Im? That's tough, right? And you got all four of those as potential captain. Pretty sweet set of cards you must have over there. But I would probably go with Im. He's my favorite out of those four. I mean, obviously, there's no sort of salary to worry about with those four. Yeah, I'd go Im. Burns ownership really under 10%. Yeah, it is. What do we have him at officially? What, 9% there? Yeah, I think so. Especially for the large field contest, will be relatively low owned. What's going on, Hollis? You chatted about this earlier. In the calm forecast could cause an increase in driver usage. Yeah, I've seen that, Mark. I actually want to talk about that right now. I think that narrative is baloney. I do not agree with it whatsoever. This is a golf course where in that 280 to 300 yard range, there are strategically placed bunkers. You have dog legs that are usually at that 300 yard mark that exponentially add difficulty to hitting driver. And you've seen a few of the longest players on tour. And I'm talking Jason Kokrak, by the way. A lot of people use him as the example for that. He's one of the longer players on tour. He carries it like 310, right? Not every player is capable of doing so. So sure, the guys that carry it like 310, they can hit driver more than some of their peers, but you've still got to be able to hit fairways. That week, Kokrak hit 75% of his fairways, which with the driver around Colonial, given how thin and narrow all of those corridors are, was unbelievably impressive. Outside of that, you haven't seen that driver heavy strategy really work. I mean, even Sam Burns laid up a ton off the tee last year. I think he was asked in one of his pressers, he hit like 6 drivers per round. So your top end drivers, right? Your Tony Finau, Scotty Schefflers, I mean, almost all of your top players up here, right? That lean on that off the tee play. Well, they're going to be able to hit it like 6 times around at the very most. Usually they're hitting it 12 to 14 times, right? They're maybe laying up once or twice around. Well, now your majority of your shots are going to be with something other than a driver. So the issue I have with Cam Davis, and it lumps into that argument there, is that I think the whole narrative that, off the tee play is a really good indicator for success is kind of baloney out there. It really is. It's only that way if you're an elite of the elite driver of the golf ball. And most of those players, right, that are elite drivers are your top players anyways, right? It's not like we're playing Tony Finau now because he's an elite driver, right? That's why he's an elite player. So I think down low, if you want to take a few bombers as a pure shot, maybe, right? But just know, like Lucas Herbert, he's a bomber. He hits the ball a long way. I can almost assure you he's laying up on almost every single hole because he can't hit a fairway for his life. So I would just push back against that. I've seen that narrative time and time again. I think a lot of the people that were saying that were thinking that they're going to be sneaky in having that kind of opinion, using that as kind of their MO this week. You're not. I've seen at least 10 different pieces of content talking about that at this point. So if you think that it's going to, make you different, you're not, right? You're just kind of changing up what you're looking for in the golf course. And we've seen Colonial for 30, 40 years. For the last 30, 40 years, it's all been about the accuracy, guys. It's all been about the guys who can fill it up with the flat stick. I'm not sure why now, here in 2023, we're all just trying to completely pivot to a different strategy. I don't agree with it at all. I completely disagree with that. So that's my rant there. And a lot of the ownership is reflective of that. I just want to point that out. A lot of the bombers, like I know I talked about, who was it, Hayden Buckley as a fade earlier today. A lot of those kind of players are really chalky, like Cam Smith. Or sorry, not Cam Smith, call him Cam Smith, another Australian, of course. Cam Davis, right, getting a bunch of ownership because of that too. There's, in my opinion, a lot of really easy fades now, right? Guys that can't lean into that driver this week. And unless you think Cam Davis is going to gain 10 strokes with his irons and gain like 5-6 strokes putting, I mean, how do you think he's going to win this golf tournament, right? I mean, if he's really going to go out there and use the off the tee play, you need Cam Davis to hit like 70% of fairways and bomb it, which I just don't see happening. I really don't. The rough out there is penal this week. And a lot of people seem to be ignoring that. It's a 3-inch Bermuda grass. That is gnarly. You are not going to get through that unless you're just one of the stronger players in the world. How do Taylor Moore in like a Valspar Colonial double? I could see it. I think it's more so like the putting ability for somebody like Sam Burns that got it done here, but Taylor Moore's a really good player. I could see that too. I like the video format, much improved. Gotcha, Hingo. Logan says, how do we feel about Taylor Moore and Henley? I like Henley. Henley's the accurate player off the tee, right? And if the prevailing narrative this week was that you need accurate guys off the tee and good short iron players, Henley would be like 30% owned. He's 9% owned right now. And you want to know why? Because of all the slapdicks out there saying that it's all about driving distance this week, which again, if you look at the correlations here's just an example, by the way. This is why I'm so adamant about this. The stats completely disagree. Look at this, guys. Driving distance is the lowest correlated stat that you have out of these over here in data golf. And look how uncorrelated it is. 0.002, 2,000ths out of 0.1 do you have for correlation, right? Other stats are like 0.3, 0.2, 0.4 even, right? For around the green, pretty important here, right? Approach 0.6, like that's almost, it's 0.6. It's almost the whole way there to a whole, 1-to-1 correlation, right? 1-to-1's the perfect correlation coefficient that you can have. 0.002. And you have touts out there telling you this week that it's all about driving distance. You're full of it. Jason Kokrak did not win here. Sam Burns did not win here last year because of their off the tee play. They're not even close to it. So let's look at this down here, right? Look at the shots gained. Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't where's the putting? The 1.2 strokes per round he was gaining with the putter, right? Oh, it wasn't the stroke per round he was gaining with the approach play, right? Like, I don't know. That's my take on that. If you can't tell, I'm pretty fired up about that because I literally don't understand where all these people are coming from, and they're spewing the BS like it's complete fact. Which, again, I just completely disagree with, at least as somebody that follows golf courses quite heavily. Who gets their maiden PGA Tour win? So first win, Carson Young or Cam Young? Definitely Cam Young, you'd have to think. But wouldn't that just be such a golf little, kick in the nuts for somebody like Carson to get it before Cam Young out there? Yeah, probably Cam Young, though. Like Carson Young this week. I like the little softball, little teed up shot that you gave me there. It's $6,300. He's getting some ownership. But if you haven't seen, he's been playing well of late. I mean, look at this. 1.5 shots gained per round. And then also at US Open qualifying, absolutely boat raced the field. I believe, was it 13 birdies he made between the two rounds there in the single day? Outrageously good stuff. So you're definitely going to get some people that play him this week. He'll be one of the higher owned players in that range because of that narrative, but it's probably worth it because it's not just that, right? He was playing beautiful golf coming in. So I like the joke there. It'd be such a golf thing, right? For Carson Young to get the win before. It's always the wedge game at Colonial. Yeah. And like Kevin Kisner and Horschel play well here, right? Like, why are we looking at bombers now? Seriously, can someone give me the reasoning other than the fact they point to Jason Kokrak and go, oh, he hit a bunch of drivers around here and won. So now obviously everyone has to hit driver to win. Like, if anyone has a take on that and knows where that came from, I would be all ears. Fully disagree with it. What tour events are you going to be at? I'll be at the US Open here in about a month. So over at LA Country Club, I'm going to be there the entire week. I'll be there early for some practice rounds. I'll be there an extra day or two, just enjoying LA as well. So that'll be the first. I'm 100% going to the Tour Championship too. Outside of that, I'm not sure. It might just be those two. Maybe I'll go out to the 3M Open. I know T. Swenny wants me to go out that way. What about Akshay Bhatia? So he wouldn't be a sleeper, Logan. So I like the play. On paper, I think he makes quite a bit of sense. Ball striking first player, gains a bunch of strokes with the approach play, right? You love to see that. The unfortunate part is that he's too cheap, and I've got him at 7.5% ownership, right? So when you compare him to the guys around him, he's sometimes double the ownership, sometimes 4 or 5 times higher owned than some of the guys around him. So I would just say that he's probably not a sleeper from the ownership perspective. I know. I'm just saying, I'd go off on it though. Yeah, I know you're not advocating for it. I've seen a million people mention it, Mark. And it's obviously, you're not a tout. You're not doing content, right? But content creators that are like touting this as a driving distance course, right? So like, not you, Mark. Like, I know you watch some of that content. I'm sure you probably agreed with maybe some of their takes, which is fine. I just don't understand it. Yeah, ball go far. Must mean they're good at golf, right? Watching about the range, getting your swing dialed, took the 3rd this weekend at the local club tournament. First off, congrats on the 3rd place finish. Second off, I want to hear that you're in a few flighted shots. Let's see a high draw, T. Swenny, and let's get a little stinger going too. Let me know how you do with that. Logan says, what do you think about Lipsky? I like him. Fits the golf course. Waterbury Open appearance. What's that? Maybe that's probably an inside joke that's going over my head, Brant. So maybe you might have to enlighten me on that one. But what's the Waterbury Open? I probably should know what that is. Palmer in Texas, AutoClick. Yeah, that's what I've heard this week. You got to play him. He's a member here, right? That's the narrative going around. 3M Open is a must. Beer and golf on me. Oh boy, you're making it hard to turn that down. If you're gonna beer and golf on you, oh boy. Plus, one of your customers is 3M and can get into the hospitality tents. You can probably sneak us out a few drinks, right? Oh boy. Happy Gilmore. Gotcha. That's the course from that. Yeah, like I said, I should have known that. Guys, I am the worst when it comes to remembering anything music or movie-wise. I'm that one friend that gets grilled for that, right? Like, everyone will be like, oh, you remember like actors and actresses. I'm even worse with. Like, I could not give a fuck about whether you're an actor in Hollywood or what you've done from playwrights or Oscars and that kind of bullshit. Like, there's legit megastars apparently that I just don't know. So yeah, if there's one thing that I don't know and that I'm not an expert on, it would be anything in popular culture. I stick in my lane, and that's sports. That's for damn sure. Where are we at? Thoughts on Ricky? Is he worth eating the chalk this week? I think so. I'm playing him. He's like 16 something, 16-2 when it comes to the ownership right now. So yeah, he's chalky, but I thought he was going to be like 25% owned. So when I got the 16% number this afternoon, I had to be all over it. But don't be surprised, Bruce, that if he comes in higher than that, because everyone loves playing Ricky Fowler. That'll be great. Really interested to see if LACC can possibly be tougher. Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about LA Country Club, right? We've never played a major there before. We don't really have any big time events that have been played at LA Country Club. So I'm really hyped to be able to actually get out there for the practice round and kind of figure it out for myself, right? I'm going to follow one of the pro-am groups, see how they're scoring out there, especially the Tour Pro on his own, and hopefully get an idea. You like Siwoo, but not the best history. Agreed. Definitely horrible history. I think that's part of the reason he's low owned. Spewing the driver nonsense. Yeah, a bunch of different people. And I understand where it's coming from. I mean, you look at a winner over the last few years and you go, well, that was one way to get it done. It's just one way to get it done, though, right? If you look at the majority of the board, it is, right, accuracy kind of things. Can you do top 40, top 20, top 10? So, yeah, I'll do that at the end. So if you want to look at the outright board, I can. Just, I guess, for an easy kind of like method to do so, my value plays, especially my top 3 value plays, I'd really like for like top 10, top 20 bets. That's kind of the idea with taking some of those value plays in DFS is, right, they're cheaper, they're further down the board, but they have the upside to crack the top 10, top 20. So I would say the Brendan Todds of the world out there, right, would be a pretty decent fit for that. Let's see. We have Eric Cole. I think he'd be an excellent top 10, top 20 bet. Same thing over here for Ben Griffin. I think he'd be an excellent top 10, top 20 bet. Callum Turan, maybe you throw in the top 40 bet on, right? Top 40 bets on somebody like a Ben Griffin, I'd say Eric Cole, maybe not the kind of value that you're looking for, but those top 10, top 20 marks, at least, again, I don't have the odds up in front of me right now. Those would be the kind of guys I'd be shopping at least, right? I'd be looking at their odds, try and see comparatively if they make sense. But it's those sort of players. I usually don't invest in that market. I'm down here in Florida. It's illegal. Getting grilled down here. Each to their own, right? Yeah, exactly. I stay in my own lane. I literally, people watch reality TV all the time. My mom, dad does all the time. I can't stand it. I literally don't watch TV unless it's sports, which is kind of lame, but it is what it is, right? Busy guy. I got other shit to get done. Super Clean says, can you do, yeah, I got you. So hopefully that helps you with that. Thoughts on Ben Taylor this week, or maybe even Denny McCarthy? I love Denny McCarthy. He's kind of my, I don't want to talk about him kind of play, because I want to keep that ownership number where it's at, right? Look at that, 7.6%. Really good putter on bent grass, has been decent with the recent form of late. Yeah, count me in. I love Denny McCarthy this week. The other guy was Ben Taylor. Maybe not as sold on Ben Taylor, but I like his upside. Right? He's cheap. He's low owned. Get the play. Cashed for that 4 of 6 last week. There you go. Hey, 4 of 6 last week. If you cashed, means you had a damn good lineup. That's for damn sure. I think mine in the community contest was also a 4 of 6 that cashed. Hit that like button. I love it, guys. Completely agree. Let's get that like button counting up. I don't have a little counter over here telling me how many likes there are, but when I check later, let's get it to 50 likes, okay? I don't ask for these kind of things very often, right? I'm not the shill for likes out here, or the shill for comments, right? You guys, you do what you like, but hey, if you hit that like button, I ain't going to complain about it. Even if you hit that dislike button, I have to say, feel free to do that too. It helps with the engagement, and it essentially is treated the same way by the channel. So you can do that too. Just hit one of the two for me. Ireland says, if I had a really contrarian core, would it be stupid to put 20 entries in the $5? Not at all, right? In fact, if you're only going to put 20 entries in a $5 GPP that has 50,000 entries in it, right? You need it to be a contrarian core, right? If you're playing all chalk, you'd be lighting money on fire, right? You'd be just playing a lottery at that point. But if you have the contrarian core, like you're saying, then absolutely it's worth it. That's the exact kind of situation that you need to be in. What's going on, Capriccio? By the way, this kid's an absolute stud when it comes to the props. So what's going on tonight, buddy? Mark says, can you do a best 4 for single entry? Yeah, we'll do that when we actually go through a single entry lineup. And spoiler alert, it's a lot of my core plays. I have to say that. Do I like Dylan Wu? I do like him this week. It's really cheap. Thoughts on Billy Ho? I like him as a sleeper play. He's 1.6% owned right now. Isn't that outrageous? Essentially, no one's getting to him this week, and he's been playing horribly. I kind of get why people are ignoring him, but at a certain point, it becomes disrespectful, and it becomes a position in the game theory perspective that's a good play. And that's what I think about Billy Ho, right? He's low owned. I understand why he's low owned, but at 1.6%, I can't resist. I know the upside that he has, and it's his kind of golf course. So I like the way you're thinking there, man. Smash the like, agreed. Let's get it, boys. Logan says, you got killed last week. It shocked you because you only played Brooks once. Yeah, if you only played Brooks once, you were screwed, right? He was 20% owned, one of the higher owned players, and he won the golf tournament. So I actually played a bunch of Brooks this week, and it didn't go all that well. My brother down here bet disliking. Thank you, Forbes. Thank you, brother. By the way, are we going to Timpano? We figured that out yet? We're going out to dinner after this? Ireland says, as in a 150 max and you're only putting in 20, yeah, that makes perfect sense. As long as they're contrarian, right? I mean, I'd prefer you to put in 150, but obviously it depends on your bankroll management, right? How much money you want to play. If you're going to play 20, just make sure they're contrarian. Not a draw player, attempted one and double crossed into the fairway. Hey, at least you gave it a chance. At least you give it a try out there for me, Travis. If you're not a draw player, how about we go with the high fade? That should be a layup for you, right? Most fades are going to go high to begin with, but do it with your wedge. A wedge high draw, Travis. That seems like a pretty difficult shot to get after. Let's talk about some of this game theory. So let me take a sip of this drink. I always forget to drink this while I'm on stream here. but it's to play Scotty Scheffler and not to play Scotty Scheffler, right? And that's what people have been waiting for. I can't believe I didn't get a question about him yet. Honestly, I can't believe it at all. No one's even asked about Scotty Scheffler to this point. I'll just say I'm playing him. I'm playing him in half my lineups, which is kind of the pussy thing to do this week, but we've been over this before, right? I've talked about it in the past. If you're going to match somebody that's 50% owned, you can do that, right? I've heard people that crucify you for it, saying that you're paying the rake, so on and so forth. You're paying the rake if you match the field with the entire field, right? You match the field in like 3 of the 4 spots in your lineup. If there's one super high owned player that you're just taking a non-stance on, I think that's okay. And what I'm doing with Scotty is I'm using him in exactly half my lineups, which is still about like 1.5x leverage to the field, right? So it's not like I'm completely pussing out here, right? Going out there and only playing him in 35% of my lineups, but I'm also not playing him in 65 to 70% of my lineups, right? I respect the fact that not only may he not be optimal, that, maybe this more balanced build might be the optimal lineup to get to, right? Where you're starting with somebody like a Spieth or maybe even a Sungjae Im. So I am playing Scotty this week. I'm only taking him in half my lineups. And I can tell you, of the guys from Tony Finau the whole way down to Max Homa, then I'm still playing 2 of those players. So it's not like playing Scotty Scheffler means you have to completely avoid this 10K range. You can still get leverage to 2 guys there in the 10K and play 50% Scotty Scheffler. And the reason why I can do that is I'm playing an unbelievable amount of guys here towards the bottom of the board. By an unbelievable amount, I mean at least like 25 players, priced $6,600 and below. It's like a third of them, literally like a third of the field priced at the bottom of the board I'm playing this week. Real simple reason why. If there's a golf course where a shitty player can play well, it's here at Colonial. You've seen it over the years. You've had long shot winners. Usually the winner is somebody from like 50 to 1 or better, but in the top 5, top 10, just crazy performances. Like guys that never finish in the top 5 finish top 5 at this event. And I think the reason for that is any skill set can get it done, right? If you're a short hitter, that's okay at this course. If you're dog shit off the tee, that's okay at this course. If you're a horrible around the green player, that's honestly okay at this course. You can get away with it, right? If you're a good iron player and putter, that's really all you need. And so what I'm focusing on down here are some really good iron players and some really good putters. Few examples. Harry Hall, one of the best putters on the PGA Tour, playing him this week. Chad Ramey, really, really good putter, playing him this week. Carson Young, playing him this week. David Lipsky, Eric Van Rooyen. I mean, I'm not going to name every player that I'm playing down here, but it's literally that many guys. Like Zach Johnson, Kevin Kisner, Peter Malnati. Like I could keep going down the board. There are just so many guys down here that I'm willing to play this week that I can take Scotty Scheffler plus one of these 10K guys. I can take Scotty Scheffler plus a 9 and an 8K guy in my lineups, because this is one of the few weeks that I feel, it's not even like I feel okay with some of the guys that are in the 6K range. I feel good about some of those lower 6K options. I mean, even like Justin Lauer down here, he's freaking $6,100. How does that make sense? I mean, Harry Higgs, it's not like he's been playing well. He shouldn't be $6,100. Like he can play well at this kind of golf course. There's just ridiculous amount of guys on here. I mean, Aaron Baddeley, like I could just continue to name guys like Sam Riders, Dylan Wu is $6,600. Like it's ridiculous how many playable guys there are down here in the 6K range. So it kind of sets up for a week where I think studs and duds is going to get it done, because I think you're going to see at least 3 guys in the top 10 down there in the 6K range. And I think you're going to see probably at least 3 of these guys in the 9, 10K range up there in the top 10 of this golf tournament. And if you can get those 6 players together, you're probably going to end up winning the GPP. So that's the way I'm taking it. Guys like Jordan Spieth, Sungjae Im, they are the starter to a few of the lineups that I'm taking. But because of how many 6K guys I'm playing, I can take them as even my second or third man in. So it's interesting from the lineup construction perspective. This 8K range, I would say I'm still playing guys here, but I'm much lower on it than most weeks. Like I'm playing Denny McCarthy, for example. I know somebody mentioned him before, but I'm only playing him in like 15% of my lineups. Siwoo Kim, for example, right? I'm playing in like 15% of my lineups too, right? Just getting that trivial leverage there at 7.5%. A majority of my high leverage guys, I mean, I guess outside of Scotty that I'm only 1.5x on, are the guys here that I'm taking at the top of the board. So that's how I'm choosing to attack this week. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't proclaim to know exactly what's going to happen, but based on the players that I'm liking this week, this studs and duds approach seems to be the way that I'm going for most lineups. Why would you play Scotty if he doesn't make a puddle week comes T10? I don't know what the why would you is too, but yeah, I'm playing Scotty in half my lineups. I mean, you could play him in all of them if you wanted to. You could take him in 0% if you wanted to. I truly get the argument for all three cases. And honestly, I've gone back and forth on him like 10 times this week. So for me, what makes the most sense is to play him in half my lineups, right? Get slate leverage, but still not put all my eggs in one basket. How do you feel about Burns after last week? Yeah, it kind of worries me, but this is a completely different kind of golf course, so we could turn it around. I like the ownership. I have to say, just for full transparency, I'm not playing Sam Burns, but I kind of wish I was because he's only 9% owned. Block Party together or Hangover. Yeah, I don't think he's going to have a good week. Am I fading Block Party? I am. He's not my favorite play this week. I'm not playing him in DFS. Ryan Fox, $7,500. Yeah, he's kind of one of those bombers, right? Like, he gains most of his strokes off the tee. It wouldn't surprise me for him to have a really good week, but I don't know. I'm not super thrilled about him. I have to say, like, if I had to choose between him and Billy Ho, right, and Billy Ho's 5 times lower owned, I'm taking the 5 times lower owned Billy Ho. That's my personal take there. I've got Rose in half your lineups and Fleetwood and Todd at about 30%. Yeah, you could do that. I'm not a huge Rose and Fleetwood guy. I do think that they're going to be a little bit chalky this week. But yeah, just make sure you're getting the leverage there, right? If you're taking 50%, you have more than enough leverage. But you don't have a crystal ball. This is BS. You're out. Yeah, right. Hey, I have to say, sorry, man. I'll catch you there later. Bryson says, I think I ask this every week, but are you setting a max ownership percentage? I haven't this week. If I did, the issue I'd have, Bryson, is that the Scotty lineups would be too contrarian. And it's more not about your max ownership as it is about your product ownership. So in my optimizer, Bryson, I am able to set both a max ownership and a product ownership number. This week, I would be trying to do the product ownership if I needed to. I didn't feel the need to, though. I already built my lineups 4 hours ago, so I already know how they're built. I didn't set any sort of max product ownership. But if I was going to set a constraint this week, it would be the product ownership. It wouldn't be a max ownership, just because I am taking somebody that's like a 33% Scotty Scheffler. By the way, if you don't know the difference between max and then product ownership, max ownership is when you add all the numbers together, right? You set a max of like 80%. So your 6 players have to add up to less than 80% ownership, right? And then the optimizer will spit it out. If you set it based on product ownership, that's multiplying all the percentages together, right? So the reason why that's more important is he's 33% ownership. But if you mix in a couple guys that are sub 1%, you don't care about that, right? You're going to get more than enough leverage with those 2 spots. And if you're doing the max ownership, or you're just adding them up together, that's like half your ownership level, right? Because the fact of the matter is, if you start with Scotty, you take 2 sub 1% owned players, you can pretty much play whoever the hell you want and get the leverage and the differentiation that you need, right? But if you're using the sum number, right, the max ownership number that a lot of optimizers out there are using, you're going to get some wacky lineups. Like, it's only going to force in like all pivots with Scotty Scheffler, which you really only need like 1 or 2 pivots to play a Scotty Scheffler. So I would say, if your optimizer lets you do product ownership, do that. You wouldn't believe how many 20-foot putts Rose made last week. Yeah, I'm not a huge Rose guy because of the putting. And then he also has a new caddy this week, which I know it's such like a weird narrative to go off of, but I don't like players when they have new caddies. I know a few guys have played well of late that have had the new caddies, like Will Zalatoris, right? But yeah, I'm not a huge fan there. Like your guy, that's why we're here to be 100%. I got you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Super Clean. Pick one between Lauer, Endicott, Hammer, and Gribble. Lauer for me. But yeah, I think those are all decent options to pick. 100%. Let's talk through some lineup construction now. So go ahead, share my screen. And what I want to focus on here is the thought process when we're building a few lineups. I'll remind you, if you're looking for the prop stuff, we'll be doing that in here about like 5-10 minutes at that point. So just sit tight, throw all your questions for props down in chat, and we'll be touching on that here shortly. All right, so in terms of lineup construction, it's all about the contest that you're entering, right? So lineup construction in general is useless, but when we start talking cash lineup construction, single entries, large field GPPs, right? We start to get into certain type of thought processes. So we're going to take them one at a time. So let's start with cash lineups, right? If we're playing cash this week, I don't want to say you 100% have to play Scotty Scheffler, but I think you're dunce if you don't. Like, if anyone out there wants to 100% guarantee that they're not going to play Scotty in cash this week, I'll play you for anything less than 10 grand on a head-to-head. Not kidding on that. It's a legitimate offer, by the way. Because he's that good of a player. He projects that well. Like, if you're looking at all the median projections and whatnot, like I said, I think you're dunce if you're not playing Scotty Scheffler this week. So if you're starting there, it does hinder your salary cap a bit, but this 7K range is more than doable. I mean, like Ricky Fowler, fantastic cash play. Towards the high end of the 7K range, guys like Brendan Todd, I think are really good cash plays at this kind of event. In the 7K range, like, I know I was shitting on Hayden Buckley this week, but you could play him in cash if you wanted to. There's a lot of obvious names to get to, but I think if the one thing to focus on, if you're playing cash, you're playing Scotty Scheffler. Like I said, if anyone out there disagrees and wants to play me head-to-head without Scotty Scheffler in their lineups, I'll play, and I don't love cash. I don't play it very often. I'll literally play for any number you want. I do not care. That's the kind of play that you need to have in your cash lineups. Going on to single entry, right? We'll go to GPPs at the end. In single entries, it's not all about the median projection, right? This is where we're trying to beat the rest of the field. If you're in just a real small single entry, let's say like 15 to 20 entries, you could play it like a cash lineup if you wanted to. I wouldn't have any problems with that. But once you start getting into a couple hundred entries, a couple thousand entries like you get for some of the larger single entry contests, this is where it starts to get closer to a GPP mindset. So in those kind of lineups, I'm still okay with starting with Scotty, but this is where you want to force in a few pivots, right? This is where Siwoo Kim comes in extremely handy. Let's see, at the top of the 7K range, that's where like a Lucas Herbert comes in handy. He's going to be super low on. This is where, let's throw Brian Harmon in there, right? He's going to be like 7-8% owned at the very most this week. Come in very handy. You mix in these guys that are going to be super low owned, and you no longer need to worry about Scotty Scheffler. In fact, if you want to take a few quote unquote chalky guys for your last two plays, well, you could probably make that work. So let's go ahead and throw Eric Cole in there. You finish off with a $6,600 golfer. And like I said, there's one that really makes sense that ends up rhyming with 2 that you could take in this kind of lineup. It rhymes with 2, his last name, but you get the point out there. It just, in a cash kind of lineup, right, you have to take, like all the chalk, just take the highest median projection players. If you're in a single entry, you can take a few pieces of chalk, right? So maybe it's not a Scotty Scheffler, right? Maybe you really like this Jordan Spieth, Sungjae Im start, which honestly, for single entries, I don't hate, right? Those are 2 pretty chalky players. Just mix in 2 pivots, right? 2 guys that are going to be slightly differentiated, right? So maybe it's the KH Lees of the world. Maybe it's going down here and taking a JJ Spawn. I mean, I don't know, right? Just 2 guys that are going to be well lower owned than their peers. I have no issues with the guys that you're finishing it off with. I mean, even if they're chalky players, right? Like I said, if you want to take Rio and you want to finish it off with another really chalky guy at 7K, I'd be okay with that in a single entry kind of build. In GPPs, this is where you got to think a little bit outside the box, right? In GPPs, especially depending on the GPP that you're in, you got to really be thinking about the leverage that you're getting to. This GPP has 47,000 entries. The one that I'm playing in this week has 60,000 entries. And to beat that many people, if you're going to start with a 33% owned player, you really, really got to think carefully about how you're putting together your lineup. So I think a way to do that, right, at least for me this week, I know Morikawa's not that low owned, maybe mixing him in at 10-4 because you're spending so much salary for your first 2 players that you're forcing yourself into the 6K range, right? And you can, let's say, take an Andrew Novak, who's going to be like 1-2% owned. I mean, you could take Callum Turan, right? I know I talked him up as a value player, right? He's going to be sub 3% owned. Now you have 2 sub 5% owned players that pretty much do all the leverage work for you. And now you can spend up into this 8K range, right? You can go in there, take Tom Hoagie, who I love all so much this week, right? And then you're left with $7 grand for your last player. This is why I like the 6K range too much, because not only can you force in weird lineup constructions that a lot of people aren't going to get to, right? Like taking Scheffler and Morikawa together, but you can also, you get the value of going to a Tom, Hoagie in that lineup. Like you can be really aggressive up top by taking some of these 6K options. And of course they're low owned, right? Like no one's going to play Novak this week. Guys like Callum Turan are going to be like 3, maybe 3.5% owned. It's just beautiful. And like, there's so many guys on my poll down here this week. that it's really easy to pull off. It's not like I'm, grasping at straws to go out there and play these guys. I'm playing like guys like Carson Young in like 5, 6, maybe 7% of my lineups for somebody like a Carson Young. Let's catch up on chat, and then let's talk some props for tomorrow. See what's going on. Cam Champ, I think it'd be an aggressive play. I prefer him at a driver-heavy golf course where he can really lean into that. This is kind of the opposite of it, so I would stay away personally. What's going on, Marco? People need to stop being shady with your prop cards. Excited to be at the course on Sunday. Yeah, I agree. Have fun out there, man. Should be a blast. I've been to a bunch of tour events, but I have to say the first few tour events you go to are the best. I mean, they're the most memorable. I mean, I can remember the first tour event that I ever went to, like the back of my hand at this point. So I'll have fun out there. And yeah, the whole stop being shady with my prop cards. Yeah, there's been people leaking my stuff. I guess that's going to happen, right? When you're growing a brand, growing a channel and whatnot, we'll shut them down one at a time. It works. What's going on, Super? What rhymes with two? So poo. Hey, I think you can figure it out. It rhymes with poo too. That's for damn sure. It's only 2 letters though. Second hint, it was only 2 letters long. Since you gave me the last guy, yeah, it does rhyme with boo, with saying boo there too. Hey, I think you figured it out there, Mark. Let's talk through these props now. So if you're just joining in now, we'll take a look at the weather. We'll remind you guys, but it's looking like it's going to be a pretty decent scoring day. We'll say that much. All right, so I'm actually going to refresh my screen here. Let's see. Any update? Doesn't look like it's updated. Let me make sure we're on the right projections. It looks like we are. Okay, cool. So this is over there at Colonial Country Club. It's in Fort Worth, Texas. And we're looking at next to ideal conditions. So if you're just joining us, Thursday, you're looking at low winds the entire day. There's been rain in the area for the last day or so. That's been sporadic. So it's going to be a likely soft golf course, or at least a little bit softer than what we're used to seeing. And then next to no winds. So in terms of props, I think we're looking at a lot of unders. I'm actually going to go ahead and bring up 2 sports books. I was showing these during the my golf video earlier. You guys may have seen on the channel, but I'm going to bring them up for anyone that hasn't seen it yet because it's rather important, especially when it comes to like shopping these lines. Alrighty. Cool. Got them up. Let's go through this now. So the lines I'm talking about are on FanDuel and they're on Bet365. So over here in FanDuel, this is the first site that I saw. I saw this bet right here. It's Scotty Scheffler, Spieth, and Finau all to shoot 68 or better is minus money, right? So that's 3 players, so like a 3-leg power play, all to shoot 68 or better. So Scotty, of course, is 67.5 now. So he obviously has a little bit of an easier prop to hit here, but it's still a 3-leg power play playing minus money. Well, over here in Prize Picks, right, like I said, Scotty's a little bit lower. We look at Tony there, and it was Victor, right? Was the last one there? No, it was Jordan Spieth. Okay. Either way, it's the same projection, right? 68.5 on either one there. They're going to pay you only plus 175 for this. On Prize Picks, you could get 4x, right? If you're at No House Advantage, that would be a 6x return over there on that site. There's a lot of value to be had in getting to some of these unders. If you take a look at Bet365, well, this is where it gets a little bit outrageous. Okay, so go over to player markets, go to first round score here, and you can see that a lot of these numbers are just way off where you see over here on these prop sites. Morikawa under 68.5, which is over here on Prize Picks, of course. You take the under, is minus 175. Chris Kirk is at 68.5. Well, yeah, he's at 69 strokes, even higher. And what is he? Oh, minus 175. Jordan Spieth, right? He's at 67.5 strokes. He's even money at that prop. What is he over here on Prize Picks? Oh, he's 68.5 strokes. If you compare some of these other sports books, there is ridiculous value to be had. I mean, even going back over here to somebody like FanDuel, right? Scotty Scheffler and Victor Hovland, both to shoot a 67 or better, is minus 160, right? So you'd have to bet $160 to make $100 back, right? Well, you could take that same $100 and play it on somebody like what is Scotty Scheffler to shoot 67, right? So it's the same line, right? It's not even like it's the 68 number from before. You take these two and you're going to get paid 3x return for it. So it's just so much better to go over here on Prize Picks and bet these sort of players. You're going to get better lines for them. I completely agree with the sentiment that's going to play easy with low winds, with the rain over the last 2 days. I'm expecting this place to get torn up. If we're looking at Underdog, I showed these before on stream. I still like the Sanjay under 69. Also, this Homa under 69 strokes. I think both of those are excellent value. And then over here on No House Advantage, they bumped most of the stuff, honestly. It's not as valuable as what you're going to see in some of the other sites. So I would probably stick to the first two, honestly. Honestly, Underdog and Prize Picks, probably the best places to bet here for the next round. Let's see if there's any questions down there. Better win all the props you can before you get to Florida tomorrow. Oh boy, I'm glad to know we've got one more day before you get down there. But yeah, hopefully we can cash out for you, Nick. Last time I know it was a disaster for you. Hosni says thoughts on Cole, Baddeley, and Moore. I like Cole and Baddeley a whole lot. Taylor Moore, I'm assuming who you're talking about. I like all three. Of course, you go with Bads. Have not popped in for a few weeks. Always pulling for Bads. Yeah, I like him for this week. He keeps making cuts and good for fantasy points. 20-1 for a top 10. You might get me on the top 10, honestly, man. I think it's a good course for him, right? It's one of those tracks where off the tee is not a really big deal. That's kind of his bane of his existence, right? He's not the best driver out there, but he can hit really good wedges and fills it up with the putter. I don't know. I love him for DFS, right? I mentioned that just there before. Maybe that top 10 gets me, though. I'm considering it. That's for damn sure. Sepp Straka or Damon Revier Lashley. I like Straka more. I think Straka's just a better player than those other three. I think Lashley's going to get some ownership. I think Damon's always going to get ownership because of the full swing thing. Sepp Straka for me. It's close, though. I think all three are decent plays. They're all kind of getting some ownership this week. That's all I've got for the stream, though, guys. Going to go ahead and cut it off there. My brother wants me to go to dinner with him, so I'm going to oblige to that. But best of luck with all those lineups, any outright bets you decide to go with. I will be doing live streams for all 3 rounds this weekend. So rounds 2, 3, and 4, I'll be going live for Showdown. Also be going over all my prop content there. So please keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting them on my social media. Of course, I'll be going live on here for those. So stop on by with all the questions that you've got. And not only are we going to kill it for our 4-round stuff, but we've got Showdown, and then, of course, props for every single day to worry about. So looking forward to it. Best of luck out there. Like I said before, in May, Jordan Spieth win this golf tournament. He's definitely the player I'll be rooting for the most out there. You guys know I'm a huge Jordan Spieth stan. It's probably not going to surprise any of you, but I really think this is a good setup for him. I think that maybe with the injury concerns that we're getting slightly lower ownership in DFS, maybe it'll be closer to like 17, 18%. And maybe he'll come through for us in those GPPs, but we'll have to see. Appreciate you guys out there, and I'll see you for the round 2 live stream.